Laura, muy bienvenida al Prestigio Leadership Forum. Good afternoon, good morning. Where are you?
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here. I am in San Francisco, California.
That's so great. I had to switch quickly back from English to Spanish um, according to the people that we are having from all over the world, from Madrid to San Diego to San Francisco and Buenos Aires. So very welcome to Prestigio Leadership Forum.
Thank you so much.
Okay, we're going to talk about psychological safety. The stage is all yours. When you finish, I'll jump up again.
Fantastic. A CEO of a technology startup in Silicon Valley called me in a near panic. He said, in the last quarter, 20% of my employees have quit, and we're just about to do a Series B fundraise. I have to solve this quick. The leadership team had already had several meetings to try to problem solve this retention problem. The CFO said, we'll give them a 10% bonus if they just will stay 3 more months. The head of product agreed. The CEO, I'll call him Aaron, wasn't so sure that this pay to stay strategy would solve.
Laura?
Yes.
Can you put your presentation on presentation mode so that production can share it?
Yes, but first I want to tell the story.
Yes, it won't be showed but we have it ready.
Okay.
We won't see it until you call it.
Okay, but I want to have the other windows up before that.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead with the story. So.
Okay, should I start over? So this CEO, he called me with this retention problem. And he said that, in the last quarter, 20% of his employees have quit, right on the verge of doing this Series B fundraise. So the leadership team had already done some meetings to try to problem solve, and the solution they came up with was straightforward: just give the employees a financial incentive. The CFO said give them a 10% bonus if they stay 3 more months, and the rest of the leadership team agreed. But the CEO, Aaron, I'll call him Aaron, wasn't so sure that this was actually going to solve their problem. They did know that their engineers could get paid more at other companies, but when I did interviews with the employees, money was not the reason why they were leaving. And so, like many leaders, this leadership team was trying to solve their retention problem by asking, what can we do to stop people from leaving? And while there is a place for this question, it's a far less important question than why would top talent want to work here? So that's the question we led with. People were leaving not because were leaving because they didn't feel heard. They didn't feel like the leadership team was actually invested in their professional development. They felt intimidated when they would bring up opposing views or disagree. And they wanted to have input, to feel appreciated, and have opportunities to develop their professional skills. Furthermore, they didn't understand why the leadership team was making the decisions that they would. So I asked the leadership team, what is the primary role of a leader? What's your fundamental job? So I want you to think for yourself right now. As a leader, what is at the heart of your role? Most leaders would say that it's to get the most out of their people, or to create vision, to hold strategy. But I put forth that the primary role of a leader is to bring out the best in their team. It's to get out of their way, to give them the resources, to unblock the obstacles that they might have, to create an environment where they can flourish, where they have the structure, the clarity, the capacity to bring their best. And so a team, just like individuals, has needs. And it's the job of the leader to fulfill those needs, to create an environment where they have the ability to get these needs satisfied. So I call this the hierarchy of team needs. And as a leader, this can create a roadmap for how to create the conditions for the highest performing team. At the foundation, there is this foundation of emotional intelligence, that there's self-awareness, there's perspective taking, agility, and adaptability. And what's built upon that is really important. It's psychological safety, where the team feels there's a sense of trust, security, fairness. And from that, the rest of performance is built upon. Collaboration, so having a sense of recognition and inclusivity in the team. Empathy, where team members and leaders understand each other and the stakeholders. And that enables people to bring their strengths, to leverage them at a higher level, to do the learning experiments that create mastery and performance excellence, so that there can be this innovation, a greater impact, to truly challenge the status quo and create what has not been created before. So let's unpack this a little bit. Why is it that psychological safety is so important? Well, Google, about 5 years ago, asked the question, what is the difference between our highest performing team and our average teams? Not just the worst teams, but our average teams to those. What are the differentials that really make the difference? They found 5 characteristics were important. 1, team members felt that their work had impact, that it had meaning, that they were serving some sort of greater mission or having more than just fulfilling a task. There was meaning to what they were doing. They had structure and role clarity. Everyone knew what to do, and they would do it in a way where if someone said they would do something, they would fulfill that. But the number one predictor was indeed having this high level of psychological safety. And we see this across an organization for the major key performance indicators as well, that employee engagement and well-being are related to psychological safety. Yes, team performance, but also across the board organizational performance and innovation. And on the flip side, error rates go down and the intent to leave also goes down. So let's define it. Psychological safety is a climate where people feel safe to take risks and be vulnerable. So in other words, when a small mistake or a minor flub happens, it's not created into this huge big deal. Actual mistakes are owned, they're corrected, no one's thrown under the bus. And there's this underlying appreciation that that left field idea could be the next big thing. So people are willing to take the risks. Now, although many people understand this intuitively, they get it. They know what it feels like. Most leaders get it wrong. I was working with a different CFO, and he said, "Yeah, Laura, you're right. Psychological safety is low in my team, but you have to understand. Every day, my job is to bring bad news to the team." He said, "I'm the CFO. It's my job to be the asshole. I said, I'll call him Jay. Yes, I get that, but you're missing something. Psychological safety is not about being nice. It's not about job security. It's not saying that there needs to be peace and harmony or sugarcoating feedback. It's having the capacity to have the difficult conversations, to go big. And if you fall, to know that that your team members are on your side. And so psychological safety is the answer to an evolutionary based question. And that question is, are you for me or are you against me? Think for yourself. When you feel that a team member, a boss, a direct report even is for you, what kind of behaviors do you do compared to when you feel like there's this sort of underlying, maybe subtle competition or or blame that happens when something doesn't go right? There's a whole host of behaviors, and it's very natural to go into defense and avoidance when we feel that someone is not on our side. And instead, when we feel like our team is actually on our side for us, then we're willing to take risk and responsibility. And that's why we see that the highest performing teams have a high level of psychological safety. So, how did Aaron, my initial CEO, go about building a culture of psychological safety? I call it the 5 C's. So, think for yourself in your organizations. How could you bring in these principles in a way that could build this interpersonal climate where people are empowered and naturally inspired to bring their best? The first is care. This is about relating human to human. And I love the quote from Maya Angelou, the poet, who said that people will forget what you said, they will forget what you did, but they will never forget how you made them feel. So simple things I'm referring to, like active listening, listening to understand rather than reply, to focus, to validate, to inquire, to bring empathy, to show interest. These are all ways that care can show up in the workplace. The second C is courage. Now, this is about being honest with the messy. And this gives permission for everyone in the room to experiment and learn. The greatest way that a leader can create psychological safety in a room in a moment is to model vulnerability. Now, what do I mean by that? Modeling vulnerability might look like admitting mistakes or having the humility to say, I don't know, but I'll figure it out. Mark Benioff did this at the beginning of the pandemic, the CEO of Salesforce. He was in an interview where the interviewer asked, what are you going to do to lead Salesforce through this pandemic? And Mark said, I don't know. I've never led a company through a pandemic before, but we will figure it out. And that's the difference with modeling vulnerability. It's sharing, it's being candid and honest with the learning journey that has happened or that will happen without having to pretend or defend that the answer is known. So what this does is it gets people from prove mode into improve mode. But it starts with the leader, because if you're not modeling this, then you're modeling and teaching something else. The second C is about, or the third C is about curiosity. So, curiosity is this action of seeking multiple perspectives. It's taking the stance that when you know less, you can see more. And curiosity can happen in a lot of different ways, but it is the fundamental action of soliciting input, of asking others, what do you think? What is your perspective? We need to hear from you because no one in the room could possibly have all the answers. We are better together. This is the key to creating not only a diverse team, but an inclusive team. The fourth C is co-elevate. I call it co-elevate. This is about bringing out everyone's best, expressing recognition and appreciation of coaching and developing others. And the fifth C is commitment. Without commitment, this is the linchpin, behavior, all of the other things fall apart. So it's committing to taking those daily experiments to put all of this into action without always knowing how it's going to work out, but experimenting with what would happen in my team if I brought more care, curiosity, courage, co elevating others, and the commitment to our higher vision. So, my challenge for you is to do the daily experiments that just might increase and build that interpersonal climate of psychological safety so that you can reach that pinnacle of true innovation and breakthrough performance. So I'd love to take any questions now if there are any.
Yes, sure. Thank you. Thank you very much, Laura, for this comprehensive view of psychological safety. And I like the fifth C, commitment, turn it into behavior. What do you find are, in general, the biggest obstacles to get psychological safety? Is that people don't buy in the idea, or that ultimately they can't behave to create it?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. It's not that people don't realize that this is important. They may not have the words for it, is what I hear, but that they're unintentionally doing things that they think might be helping, but actually are diminishing the psychological safety in the room. I have a handout that is placed into the chat that you can look at what the unintentional diminishers that are very common happen and what also builds the psychological safety in a room. So the biggest problem is that people are not intentional in building this type of culture. They expect that it will just happen on its own, and it won't. We have to be intentional in building that culture where people feel that it is safe to make mistakes, to give opposing ideas, to dissent, to share their real view, to say, I don't know, to show humility, to say, I'm overwhelmed, I need help. And that doesn't happen on its own. We are social beings and we care a lot about what other people think. So we are more prone to play it safe, to play small, rather than to stick our necks out and to do things that might be interpersonally risky. So we have to be assured that that will be supported in the environment. That requires proof. It requires a leader that intentionally models and encourages that behavior.
So once we have the leaders that buy in, and there might be one or two that lag behind, is coaching or mentoring the only tool we have to bring them back on board?
Well, the question that I always ask when I'm working with my leaders doing executive coaching is to say, how's that working out for you? What are your objectives and how are you reaching them? How successfully are you reaching them? And then to look at the behaviors that are getting in the way. So oftentimes leaders know that something's not working, they just don't know exactly what. So helping them, that might be through coaching, that might be getting input from their team. So doing like my CEO did, a company-wide survey, asking those crucial questions like, do you feel heard? Do you feel like you can oppose your manager? To what extent do you expect that your team members will support you when you make a mistake? Do you feel like you have to censor your opinions? Asking those questions. When a leader gets back, if their team has low psychological safety and their team gets back low scores on those, there's a natural alarm bell that happens and they say, whoa, what can I do to change this? And then you've created an opening for suggestions for either passive coaching or direct coaching.
Sometimes I remember in a conversation with Tony Shea from Zappos.com talking about the importance of culture and trying to build a culture of psychological safety. He said, ultimately, the test of your culture if you're able to fire your superstar. Obviously, if that superstar doesn't play with the rules of your culture, in this case, psychological safety. Do you think that people that end up being poisonous to the team work should be ultimately fired if they don't go with the mentoring or the coaching?
Well, going back to the primary role of a leader is to create an environment where everyone can bring their best. And if someone is getting in the way of the other team members bringing their best, whether it's a leader who's getting in the way or a team member or any stakeholder who's getting in the way of the team bringing their best, that requires attention. And in some cases, it might be appropriate to manage them out.
Yes. Okay. Thank you very, very much, Laura. We take the 5 C's: care, courage, curiosity, co-elevate, and commitment to put them into practice right away. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.